Hello everybody and welcome and enjoy the video with me today. We're going to be discussing the incredible Lego group case. It's a case that I was not responsible for setting, although I absolutely love Lego and have probably way too much Lego that an adult should have. I think I have more than my kids. But that aside, this Lego case is quite interesting and it's about the Lego vault. And in this Lego vault, somewhere up in Scandinavia, they apparently have every Lego case that's ever been made, at least one set there. And I would be like a little boy locked in a sweetie shop overnight if I could just get into there and have a look at all those things. It must be absolutely incredible. So that's an economic event that they've sketched for you in this scenario, in this case that you're looking at, is you need to now consider these Lego sets that Lego is holding in its vault and how to account for it in Lego's accounting records. So I think it's a really simple scenario. That's all there is to it. You've got basically this museum, this vault, where we've got all these sets that are being kept by Lego. So in the case, they say to you, and I've given you now an RTC version, all right? So that's where we're building up to, you becoming a professional accountant. And when you get to the RTC, for a case like this, the required is going to be short and sweet. And I think it would read something, hypothetically speaking, like this. Develop an accounting policy for the initial and subsequent measurement of the Lego sets that are part of Lego's memory lane archive in the consolidated financial statements of the Lego group in terms of IFRS. So I think that's where they'd leave you hanging if this was in the RTC one day. The first draft of this case, when we set it up, also stopped at this point. But because you're new to IFRS and you're still growing into IFRS, we gave you some additional guidance. But before I go into additional guidance, let's just think a little bit about what could be at stake here. Accounting policy. Right, what standard do you know that deals with accounting policies? It's IS 8. So without any other guidance in this question, I've already realized, IS 8 is something I might need to think about. That's where they speak to me about choosing policies, changing policies, what are policies? And then they say to you for the initial and subsequent measurement. Okay, fair enough. Where have I seen those words before? Most asset standards, go and look at all your asset standards. They structured in the table of contents, you'll see the initial and subsequent measurement. So there already I'm starting to think, okay, there must be an asset standard at stake here. What asset standards are you familiar with at this stage of your studies? Probably the IS2, IS16 for property, plant and equipment, your investment property, and perhaps the financial assets to a degree that you've looked at as well. So those could be some of the asset standards that you'd be thinking about. And then you'd now need to decide which of those. So you'd need help with choosing that. And you know what? There's help for choosing those in the IAS 8 standard, in your changes in accounting policy standard. It will tell you what to do to help you choose a policy. The first thing, remember, that you go to is you go and have a look, is the existing IFRS on this. There's definitely no existing IFRS on something like this. So then you need to go to IS 8 and say, okay, IS 8, help me. What do I do when an existing IFRS does not exist? So that's sort of the battle plan that you would follow, and it's a very practical example that you could face in practice. But because, as I said, you're growing into becoming a professional accountant and you're not quite there yet, we added some things on to help you with this case, to build you up into it. So the first part you'll recognize there at the top, the in IFRS, is what I had there for the RTC example, because it would be very broad in the IFRS universe. We substitute that now in this introductory case by then saying to you, don't worry, in terms of IS 8 and IS 40, how nice are we? How much easier does that make life? Because now, what have we done for you? We've already reminded you guys, accounting policy is in IS 8. And guys and girls, the IS 40, didn't we just think about which asset standard might we be using? Merry Christmas. It's come early, just like all the shops always have their decorations up 2 months early. Never understand it, but here we go. Here's a present from our team to you. That's the standard you're going to look at. But wait, there's more. Yeah, I'm getting into the swing of these things for Christmas time, eh? So what is the more? We give you that note section. Don't refer to qualitative characteristics. And you don't have to discuss them. So all those long paragraphs, please don't discuss them. You don't need to. Okay, don't go to the framework. And just to make sure you understand us, the next bullet, don't go to the framework. Okay? So if you see something that says to you, go to the framework, no, the question says, I'm limited, I don't need to do that. Great stuff. Then it says to you, don't refer to any other IFRS. So for those of you that were thinking, oh, maybe we don't agree, it's not IAS 40, it could be something else. For the purposes of this question, we've boxed you in, unfortunately. I don't generally like boxing you guys in, but in this case, because it's a case and we're looking for a relatively fixed memorandum, we've boxed you in for that. And then limit definitions to only what's most important to answering the question. Okay, so there could be some wide applications and definitions and things coming. I now know I need to limit it to the most relevant ones. What's going to help me here is the mark allocation for this case. So go and have a look at the mark allocation because that restricts your time as well. So you'll only want to go on to what I can fit into that little bit of time. Okay? And things like that, remember, comes with practice. That is a skill. You're new to all of this. Although you're getting on towards becoming a professional accountant, that end goal is not that far away anymore. And then we've also helped you and said don't discuss the application in detail. So there's the guidance that we've given you. So if I switch this back to the slide that would be your ITC where you're getting to one day, well, the recording is not going to allow me to do that, sorry. So on that version, which was just the piece at the top there, discuss the accounting policy, develop an accounting policy, initial, subsequent measurement of the Lego sets. Very broad. But we've come to the rescue and we've given you all that guidance afterwards to help you through with it. So you've read the information, you've thought about it as you've read it. Generally, when I'm doing a case like this with accounting policy, I would have made a little pencil note there for myself, IAS 8, initial subsequent measurement. Oh, I've seen those words. Note for myself, asset standards. Just forcing myself to think while I'm reading, that I'm not just reading the stuff in an unstructured way. Okay, and then the asset standards, they told you IAS 8. So that would be the setup to this question. Now we've got to plan our battle plan for this. So at RTC level one day, accounting policy, that's where we're going to be looking. We've helped you get there. Then in RTC, initial subsequent measurement, you'd have to sit back and you'd have to think, which standard is the closest by analogy to this? And the reason I do that is when you go into IAS 8, and we'll look at that in the memo now. Remember, IAS 8 says to you, no IFRS, then go to similar standards. Go to the framework. Even go to competing standards like US GAAP if you need to. They give you a hierarchy in IAS 8. You can go and have a look at that paragraph again. So RTC level, bit more tricky. You're going to have to try and work out which standard comes the closest to analogizing. Is there one? If there isn't one, am I going to the framework, etc.? But we've helped you. We've said to you, introductory level will help you. IAS 40, that's where you're going to have to go to. So there's my plan for the solution. I've only got 18 marks, so there's not much that's going to be going up. I've already sort of broken those. I know it's just a guideline for me when I'm answering this question, roughly what to do. I've got 3 sections here, and I'm going to have to come up with a conclusion as well on that accounting policy. So that might be taking 2, say, of the 18 marks for this case away. So I'm down to maybe 16 marks. But even if you're still with the 18, divide it by 3. There's 6 marks per section, roughly, to give you an idea of what's going on. It may not turn out to be like that. Remember, the best plan is a plan that continuously changes. You won't believe me, my 10-year-old taught me that yesterday. I was inspired, so I'm mentioning it now today as well. Just got the gap to say that. So our plan initially is those 3 things is what I want to discuss to come up with that accounting policy. So I'm looking at about 6 marks. That could change once we get into the content of what we're going to do. All right, so if you want to stop at this point and you want to go and look at those standards before we carry on, by all means, pause it and then come back and join me again once you've just looked at the theory and thought for yourself, what theory would I pull out to be able to answer this? If you've already worked through the question and the solution, then you'll be a little bit biased, but try it again if you want to. Just take a moment to refresh your memory. I'll be back with you in a flash.